So I'm just going to talk a little bit. This will be pretty short. I'm just going to kind of give a little overview on sort of what Moneythink is and how we built it. I think it'll be interesting for you because it's kind of a good little window into how the school operates and sort of what's going on with the student population here. So when we started this 3 years ago, it was just sort of, it was a spinoff of an on-campus club called Blue Chips, and that's sort of the on-campus investment club. And so we said, okay, we want to do sort of a community service branch to this. We went out and we got really excited, and we got together, we got on the bus and went down to a school and just did a test class about sort of teaching investment. And it was a pretty dismal failure, actually. We got about 0% buy-in by our students. But we learned a really important lesson there. And it was kind of about, the needs of the South Side. We were really motivated by the recession that had just sort of been plunging, the nation was plunging into at the time. And so we decided to start moving towards more of a financial literacy track. And what we found after a little bit of A/B testing and trial and error was that the only way that you could get high school juniors and seniors, which is our test population, the only way that you can get them to really care about financial literacy, right, to start changing the way they spend, et cetera, is to give them a goal. So it turns out that, if I were to tell you right now, I want you to stop buying bottled water, or I want you to stop doing this on a weekly basis, or stop going out to eat, and instead put that money aside. You would say, it's my money, I'm going to do whatever I want with it. And so instead, we sort of developed this program where we go in, and the first thing we tell students is, okay, so who are you? What are your goals? Like, let's sort of get the ship going in a direction. And then the mentorship, which is what we provide, helps them get there. And through that mentorship, financial literacy is just kind of delivered as a tool to help them accomplish those goals. And so really our success metric is how many goals have our students accomplished this course. And so if we get 50% of our students saying that they've reached their goal, or 60% of their students who've reached a tangible, measurable goal, then that's huge for us. And so that was kind of the initial model, and we started working on it. Spent a little bit more time with our students, going to their basketball games, hanging out with them, inviting them on campus to have little barbecues and things like that. And it was great. We really we really became like a little family with our classroom. They would ask us for advice on college recommendations, or to edit their college essays, and so it was fantastic for us to kind of have that mentorship relationship. And so we decided to kind of take that model to the next level. And what happened there was we're all the founders consider themselves entrepreneurs. I certainly consider myself to be one, and we were very excited about trying to bring some of that entrepreneurial thought, the sort of, and everything that goes into that, right? Managing the money, trying to get a budget, being consistent on a daily basis. I mean, there's so many little things that go into managing a company, and bringing that and actually getting the classroom to build a company. And so there are a lot of other nonprofits that do this. They say, and they ask people to build business plans, or they ask them to build little mock ventures where they trade fake money. But we're one of the only nonprofits that I know of, at least, that has students build actual working profitable ventures in 10 weeks. And so we've got 6 or 7 of these that launch each year, and they pitch at the end of the year here on campus. And so that's kind of a fun process. And so, what I'm going to talk just briefly about is I want to talk a little bit about how we built the organization on like a student level, so that as alumni kind of what's going on here on campus. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about just a few sort of success stories, and then you guys can ask me any questions that might come to mind. So the first real problem that we faced here on campus was one, sort of getting the resources that we need to build this. And the university's been absolutely fantastic about this. They really gave us the seed capital that we needed to take this off, and as well as like the building resources. When we needed something, the university was there for us 100%, and we're deeply indebted to them for that in that sort of initial push. And furthermore, the second problem that we had was sort of leveraging, starting a student movement, right? We really wanted to have a core of the most dedicated students out there who were willing to go out and teach these students, because it's not an easy process, right? You're really asking students to do a lot. It's through, it's getting up at 6:30 in the morning. I had never gotten up at 6:30 in the morning in college before I started this organization. That was like a huge step. We had to get people to get up at 6:30 in the morning, get on a bus down to a neighborhood that they'd never been to, that other people told them was sketchy or whatever adjectives they might use. And, so we teach down normally all on the south side. So we're teaching at Perspectives, charter school, we're teaching at Woodlawn, we're teaching at places like South Shore High School. You really have to be willing as a mentor to sort of persevere through with your students, right? So it's twice a week, and the first 2 months you're fighting against almost a wall of blank faces that look at you. And little by little, as you show them that you care and you learn about them, you start to figure out kind of what their lives are, what their stories are, and you as a mentor make yourself vulnerable to them. You really start seeing these relationships to form, but it's not an automatic process. There's a lot of dedication and persistence that's kind of necessary to make that happen. And so the first kind of problem that we faced was you've got really, really bright students here. There's absolutely no shortage of brilliant people who are willing to go into urban schools and teach. But getting them to show up to all the meetings on time and getting them to not miss classes was, it was a logistical difficulty. We didn't have any money to pay anybody to manage the logistics. Had to get everybody on buses. Everybody knew what was going on. And so the first year was really sort of, the program was held together by duct tape, if you will. I mean, it was really sort of a tough operation. And the way that we got around that actually was really interesting. The first thing that we did was we built an application process. And if there's one thing I learned about Uchicago students, they love to apply to things. They just love it. If there's an application form, they will fill it out. It's a pretty amazing phenomenon. And so the moment we made a big deal out of it, we put posters all over the campus, and we listed all the awards that the founders had won and the money that we'd raised, et cetera, and we got just applications pouring through the door. We got, I think we got about 160, 170 applications for about 30 spots. And so we were kind of taken aback. Well, okay, cool. So the application process was the first thing, and really buying the culture. And the second part was we had what was called the 24-hour cancellation role. This may seem very obvious to everybody in the room right now who's spent years running sort of much more legitimate organizations where people are paid and it's sort of a full-time gig. But when you're competing for the college students' time, you're competing against the millions of other things that they have going on in their life, right? They've got their sports team, their fraternity, their girlfriends, the 17 other registered student organizations that they're a member of, on top of their classes, which is obviously the priority of everybody who's here. And so it took us probably about 1.5 years to build that culture, but I'm really proud to say that I think that we've developed a pretty unique culture here on campus, and that the members who come in now really know what they're training for. We kind of consider ourselves now a training ground for future entrepreneurs or future Teach for America candidates. And so the way we did that was by building what we called triangle teams. And this was kind of a really, really interesting social experiment for us, which was just as we specialize in mentoring students at the high school level, we also wanted to mentor our young leaders. And so we built sort of a social club around it, where each team had to participate in some other part of the organization besides just the mentoring. They had to become part of the mechanics. There was nobody that just did one side, right? If you were in the organization, you had to be in the classroom, and if you were in the classroom, you had to be helping run all the administration, or you had to be helping fundraise, or you had to be doing any of those things. And so as these mentors came together, we really formed sort of tight family-like squads. I mean, the founders lived together for a period of time. We've had a lot of these small teams move in together almost, so it really sort of became the center of their social life, and that was really, really critical to sort of bringing in together a successful organization, which is obviously here on campus, college students, we love partying, we love things that aren't class, and so if we could sort of put ourselves in the middle of that sort of more social, more fun life, as well as really directing people's passions and leveraging on that and giving them just a bright avenue towards that. That was key. And the final part of the mentorship model was that we built, we used the University of Chicago's great name to build one of the best sort of student advisory boards on campus. And that was not formed by students, but by people who really cared about the organization and who wanted to help us. And so they would come in and take a team, whether it be, say, the fundraising team or the curriculum development team, out to lunch. It happened about once a month. And so all of a sudden, we gave students a pipeline to people that they normally wouldn't have access to. So we brought in, for example, the chief financial officer of Chicago Public Schools. Or we would bring in, bright entrepreneurs who could give us great examples on how we could run flat organizations and expand faster. And that was that was a key facet. And the other really, really important part of it was that people needed to feel like they were part of something that was growing really fast. We were really passionate about spreading this model in what is called the Starfish Method. So there's sort of this contemporary business theory right now, which is you're either the spider or the starfish. If you break a spider's leg off, they will die. They have they don't lose their mobility completely. And so a lot of corporations today would be considered spiders. If one branch goes down, it's such a financial house of cards that the entire house might tumble. But we were really inspired by the starfish model, where if you cut off a starfish leg, another will grow in just a short period of time. And believe it or not, one of the organizations, and I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but one of the organizations that really sort of inspired us as a model for building this out was Burning Man. Do you guys know about Burning Man? Burning Man is it's a sort of an enormous art commune that happens for 1 week in the desert in Nevada. And about 40,000 people come out to the desert and make a huge city. And in between, there's a whole community of it where people do meetups outside, and it's a really kind of strongly knit community. But there isn't anybody in the center who's running it, right? There's a small office in San Francisco that's putting things together. But if that office were gone, Burning Man would probably still happen. It'd be smaller, it wouldn't be as big, but the organization would continue to strive. And so we were really sort of passionate about sort of almost franchising that, leveraging the power of student capital, giving other students the opportunity to grow, to take a proven model and to build it in sort of their own image, if you will. And so we started a recruitment campaign sort of across the country. Send out another application and, called all our friends at every great university that we knew and said, hey, we've got this great program and we'd like people to build it for us. And we've done the hard part, right? We've got the knowledge capital. You just need to work to make it happen. And we found really a core of really, really bright leaders all around the country. And that was probably, for us, one of the most exciting parts of it, too, was seeing this model kind of expand outwards and being able to work with some of the best and the brightest at other campuses. And so Moneythink is actually running now on 25 other college campuses. And that's they're all entirely independent operations. The only thing that we send them is we send them a big, what we call welcome package. And that welcome package has our curriculum books, They get some cool swag, so they get things like stickers and pins and chapstick, and that kind of gets people all fired up. But for the most part, it's all them. And so they really create their own culture and their own image, and we sort of just network with each other. So we have weekly or bi-weekly webinars where they come in and just talk, ask questions. Hey, Morgan, or hey, Ted, have you ever encountered this problem before? How do I get around this one administrator at a school? What's a great sort of political solution to this? And so in that way, we can help sort of guide them in the same way that our mentors that have guided us in the past into building successful Moneythink chapters. And so it's been great. The other day, I had no idea that this had happened, and a friend of mine from Seattle emailed me an article and said, "Hey, weren't you involved in this thing?" And I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And in one of Seattle's local newspapers, there was this huge article on this new cool financial literacy organization called Moneythink, and I said, "Well, I didn't even know that we had a chapter there." So that was amazing. When somebody who you barely know sends you an article about an organization you started, it was really kind of fun to watch that grow, seeing how that kind of organically grew into a very powerful movement. And so I think really what I'm getting at here as a whole is that university campuses, and especially this university campus, among the others wonderful organizations in this country, are really, really great breeding grounds for building this sort of grassroots capital, right? And I think that that's something that maybe you can take away, both of you, as you look back on your own experience here or look to stay involved on the University of Chicago campus. There's so much ambition, intelligence, talent, and also, most importantly, probably hunger, that often all it really takes to ignite this organization or any organization is a bright idea, a working model, and then the mentorship and the guidance to get students to work in a particular direction. And that was really one of the greatest lessons that I learned. And it's been really an honor to watch that happen, to watch all these other young leaders develop and sort of take on parts of the organization and make it their own. And so again, all Moneythink does, we say we're a financial literacy organization, and there's a lot that goes into it, but in the end, we really are a mentorship organization. And what the founders believe in, if you ask us why do you do this, is that we really believe in the power of that human capital, all the way from our mentors who are people at Goldman Sachs or the CFO of Chicago Public Schools, to the newest mentor, Shadow, who hasn't even completed the training yet, holding an initial conversation with some students on the south side. At each level of that, our effort is really to try and harness the hunger of youth and their ambition and try and just guide it in a very positive direction through goal setting and by giving them the tools that they need to really succeed. And so that's sort of what Moneythink has been about. And so I'll take you a little bit through our classroom session, and then we'll sort of wrap it up for questions. And the way that classrooms work is it's a 10-week process. So we're in there twice a week, and sometimes these can extend if we need to. I just ran a program that went for 6 months, twice a week, where we really just kind of bonded with the class and needed the time to launch this business. More frequently than not now, what we do is we come in, and the first 5 weeks are just about, hey, who are you? What's your goals? We start doing some goal setting planning. We start getting students thinking about how they can, set very clear deliverable action steps. And in the process of that, we bring in real world examples. And so we'll do things like we'll bring in examples from Def Jam Records, Russell Simmons, who's a hero of theirs, or we'll bring in Michael Jordan and how he built his financial empire. And so these are things that are very, close to the student's heart, to their world, to their culture, something they can understand, that they can grasp, and that really hits home for them. And we talk a little bit about, interesting models of entrepreneurship. What goes behind the products that they use on a daily basis? And it's not just tech entrepreneurship, not just, hey, what's the next Google or the next Facebook, but also who are the people who are starting lemonade stands? or who are coming in, and we've got a lot of people who are I had a really bright student that started a t-shirt printing company, or that started a recording studio for student artists, where he had like this little cheap package where it was like, hey, for $250 I'll get you a demo album, which is what was necessary to sort of get to the next level. And so, there was we found this sort of the wisdom and this hunger to build these small businesses. And we brought in these examples of not just the largest and the most successful, but the people in their own community. And the class starts to learn how to shape those into a good business model. And so that's really the first 5 or 6 weeks. It's coming in, it's using the examples, and it's defining the terms. What is an entrepreneur? How can we structure this business? How do you want to build it? What's a good revenue model? And then, doing the due diligence. And, really the greatest part of it all is that it's the first time for many of our students that anybody has asked them to come clean with a really large-scale deliverable, right? And that's kind of a scary process for them. Students are often asked to do, little reports. This might be a 4 or 5 page report on something. Or it might be, hey, I'd like you to finish this project in a group. But it's the first time that anybody says, hey, we need this, and it needs to be done by this, and there's a real substantial risk of failure. And so getting the students to accept that risk of failure is also a really important part of that process, and a really important part of the gift that we give our students. Because a lot of times we'll walk in, and I'll give you an example. I just taught at Perspectives High School, and their business was a school dance. And at first the students, they got kind of excited about it. And as the dance came near, some of my students just kind of freaked out. They were like, this dance is going to fail. What happens if we show up and, nobody's there? And so they started, harping on their own dance. They would say, hey, this dance is going to suck. No, I'm not going. I don't want to go to this dance anymore because, nobody's going to show up and it's going to be a bummer. And so we had to really sort of tighten down the class, kind of come in as a class, really sort of build that optimism, and understand that failure was okay, that we might fail, but that there was a big cushion, and that the worst was going to happen is that we were going to have a great time as a class at the dance. As the business starts building and we start to overcome these little problems, right? Failure. The next real barrier that we hit, and this is pretty much the last 5 to 6 weeks of the course, is this commitment issue, right? And some students don't come to school. Sometimes some students just decide they don't want to be a part of the project anymore. And so it's really important for us to leverage the class energy by really trusting the students and believing in the students to build their own little part of the business, right? And so we say, listen, you're in charge of the decorations for the dance, or you're in charge of you're in charge of the chips section of the student store. I want you to take care of that. And as they start to leverage this responsibility, they really, really get excited about it. They say, wow, all right, cool. I'm in charge of this. What can I bring next? We had one student at Perspectives that decided to write sponsorship letters to all of the major food suppliers in her neighborhood to see if we could get a food sponsorship for the dance. And that just blew me away. That was, the quality of the letter and both the initiative that she took was really just powerful. And finally, at the end of all this, a business goes up. And once it goes up, maybe there's some problems, but in the end, there's money coming through the door. And it's not play money, it's not fake money, it's real hard currency that they can do whatever they want with. And I think that initial moment, right, where they're coming in and they walk home and they hand their teacher an envelope with all the bills that they've made that day, it's really, really powerful experience. Because even though it's not a lot of money, maybe the class makes a few $100s or $300, they have a business that works, that can scale, and they've done something that's converted into something that they really wanted, which in this case was money and or some experience that they were working towards. So again, that was really, for them, that's a huge sort of stepping stone of, wow, I had a deliverable, we came through, and there were great results. We're making money now. And that gives them a huge amount of confidence for their next deliverable, which is getting into college, or which is, applying for that job, or getting some first assignment to their new boss. And what it is, so in the end, what we deliver, even though we are a financial literacy organization that helps them build, is we deliver confidence, and the understanding of sort of how to shape your ambition into sort of clear, hard goals and achieve them. And so that's kind of what Moneythink's about.